Hi, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to segment 3 of this AI series. So today we're going to talk about using AI the right way. And so we've kind of already been talking about that. This is a little bit of repeat information, but also a lot of new information as well. So let's get going. All right, enhancing versus outsourcing, right? So are you able to clarify the crucial difference between using AI for editing and enhancing your writing versus outsourcing your work? And why does this distinction matter for learning ethics and academic success? So that's sort of the focus of this particular video. So remember, we said earlier, we want to use AI as a tool, not a crutch. And so scholars like Selwyn and researchers contributing to the book Teaching with AI, which I mentioned in previous videos, stress that AI is best leveraged as a collaborative tool rather than a replacement for human creativity and critical thinking. According to Dr. Bonnie Stewart, AI can support drafting and revision, but authors must engage actively to ensure that their ideas, perspectives, and arguments remain authentic. This aligns with the broader academic consensus that effective AI use requires the intentional human effort to guide, interpret, and refine AI-generated suggestions. And that's sort of just a summary of all the information we've talked about so far. So what is the difference between editing and outsourcing? Well, if you write a draft and you use AI to polish your language, fix errors, and clarify ideas, you've edited. If you let AI generate whole sections or essays without meaningful revision or contribution from you, that's outsourcing. Practical tips. So start with your own draft. Try not to ask questions. Try to make sure that before you consult AI that you have read your course content, right? That is essential. Read the course content, then try to answer the question on your own as best as you can. Type up your answer. Then, if you want to submit your answer to AI and ask how you did, that's a great use. You can ask specific questions. Instead of write my essay, can you suggest a clearer way to say this? Or how can I make this paragraph more concise? Review the suggestions carefully. AI can make errors. We already talked about that. So make sure you're watching for those. Use AI to overcome writer's block. Well, actually, let me go back to the other one, AI suggestions. This is where reading your course content really matters, because if you've read the course content, you're going to know your history. And then you're going to catch vague suggestions, you're going to catch superficial answers, and you're going to catch historical inaccuracies because you've studied it for yourself, you know your stuff, and then you can refine with that knowledge under your belt, right? And so the next point, use AI to overcome writer's block. Maybe you're struggling. Brainstorm synonyms, alternative sentences. Make sure that you personalize everything. And again, ask AI for multiple perspectives. Sometimes if you read, if like I assign journal articles and they may contain one perspective. And usually like the way I do things, I try to ask an open-ended question about the topic. And so, I may assign 2 journal articles that have differing perspectives. You may ask AI, what are the other perspectives? Because, if you have 5 historians in a room, you may get 5 different perspectives on a topic, right? It's sort of like if you're in a car accident, God forbid, right? Or you saw a car accident. If you have 5 bystanders at 5 different places, 5 different vantage points, they're all going to explain the accident from their perspective. And you're going to explain it really differently if you're the one driving the car, your passenger, right? And so, that's the thing. I can give you 2 perspectives as a sort of an opposing viewpoints assignment. There are many other perspectives in history, and you can ask AI to give you all of them. And then you have a really well-rounded picture of what you're reading. So, the other thing is keep track of your AI use. Note how AI helped you in your writing process and be prepared to explain it when you're asked for it. Using AI responsibly means respecting your institution's academic integrity policies. Make sure you know what those are. Cite AI contributions when your teacher asks you to. Over-reliance on AI to produce original content risks plagiarism and deprives you of an essential learning experience, which we've discussed. Being transparent about AI use builds trust with instructors and peers and aligns with emerging standards in academic writing. So, how to study smarter. You can create personalized quizzes and flashcards. You can use ChatGPT. Quizlet AI is another great way. It will put things together for you, which is fabulous. You can use AI as a personalized tutor. Now, this is where we look at job security, right? Is it going to replace our human tutors? No, but it certainly could minimize the need for them. So you can upload or share what you're studying and then ask questions about it. Again, I caution you, do not upload anything with your name or personal credentials on it. Keep it vague. Ask very specific questions like explain diffusion versus osmosis, like I'm a beginner. What's the difference between reliability and validity in research methods? Can you break this down into a step-by-step explanation? So those are just a few questions that you can use. You know, the more specifically you ask your question, the more specific of an answer you'll get, and you'll find that your help is very tailored. What I'm finding as I ask my students to create outlines and plug them in, or create a source list and plug it in, ask it to check your sources against your thesis. Do these sources actually support my thesis? In a lot of ways, chat becomes like a tutor to them, and it's easy for me to give everyone a higher grade because, you know, they write a reflection about what they learned. I can evaluate what they learned and how they grew, and some of that has to do with finding the errors. Like in the source evaluation, sometimes it will label a scholarly source as unscholarly, and I'm looking to see if my students caught that. Did you know that this was the work of a historian and AI said it wasn't, or things like that. So you got to be able to recognize those things. Information you should never plug into AI tools. So your full names. This is a comprehensive list. I've touched on this. This right here is extremely important. So if you zoned out and you're eating your Cheetos or whatever you're doing, pay close attention to this because this is what's going to protect you. Okay, so you would never want to put your full name, address, phone number, or social security number into AI. That it's going to store it, and then you're in the database forever. You don't want to put your birthday or government issued ID numbers, bank account, credit card, financial details should never be entered into AI. Your usernames and passwords, health or medical records, anything that's protected by HIPAA, do not plug any of that in. Sensitive academic content. So let's say that your instructor is working on a journal article that's not yet published, and they give it to you and they say, you know, I'm working on this. I want you to read this and, you know, use this as part of your evaluative process or whatever. I can tell you I've published in peer review before, and I had actually at the time I had a website where I was publishing a lot of my work for my professors while I was working on my doctorate, and the paper that I had submitted was published on my page for my professors. Well, they were going to accept it, and they came back and said no, they can't because it's already published somewhere else. And so then I had to explain to them, oh, well, that's actually my website. It's my stuff. But it looked like I had plagiarized off someone else's website. And so I'm not really sure how that works if you plug something unpublished into AI. If I know it keeps it. I don't know how extensive these journal editors search for this kind of thing, but you would not want to plug in unpublished research work into AI. And there are other reasons for that as well. You know, maybe the study's not finished and it's inconclusive, and then AI would plug that in as absolute truth, especially if it's stated in such a way. And maybe, you know, when the research is finished, you find that there are other factors and this actually isn't true. And so avoid doing that. Confidential group project materials. You don't want to plug in instructor provided rubrics or assignments that are not meant for public tools, or graded feedback or instructor comments. So avoid putting your instructor's name, the school where you attend, anything like that. Just keep your information very vague. And so you wouldn't want to plug in internal academic data, rosters, grade books, things like that. So in other words, like what you can see about your classmates, definitely. And if you're working on a group project, make sure that you do not plug in your classmates' names or student IDs. You wouldn't want to plug in proprietary course materials that your institution restricts. So, yeah, emails, phone numbers, conversations without permission, confidential comments that are made during class meetings. I mean, some things just do not belong in an LLM. So any data that's owned by the government, so like FERPA says that I can't share your information, your academic information with other people. HIPAA is your health, other things, anything related to privacy laws. You wouldn't want to put legal case information in there or sensitive communications. So if you're going through, you might be asking AI for help about a court case that you're dealing with. Maybe God forbid you're being sued or someone's suing you, you've got to be really careful about what you plug in with that. You can certainly ask it for help, but again, keep it very vague. So remember that AI platforms may store or use data for model training or product improvement unless explicitly opted out or used through private and enterprise versions. So, in summary, AI can be an incredible academic ally, helping you brainstorm, clarify tough concepts. You can quiz yourself, improve your writing, but it only works in your favor when you stay in control of the process. Always use AI as a tool to enhance your learning, not a shortcut to avoid doing the work. What are the biggest pitfalls? Well, relying on AI for the entire assignment, skipping the fact-checking process, or plugging in private or restricted information. Not only can this hurt your academic integrity, it can hurt your own learning. You want to be an informed learner, right? So use AI wisely, stay curious, stay ethical, and stay in charge. Thanks for watching.